Hey, I'm Pascal from Orangepixel and welcome to another video. And this video is going to be interesting, fun, different than all my other videos. Last week I had to dig up some old source code for one of my games. At some point I created HTML5 versions of a couple of my games and I needed the source code, and I figured found it eventually. I had to dig through many drives, but I found it on this little backup drive. I'll talk about HTML5 games later on. I'm trying to do something with it. I'm not sure yet what or if it's gonna work. Eventually we'll talk about it. But what I also found on this drive is more interesting. I found my very first Orangepixel release. The first games that actually turned me into the full-time indie game developer that I am now, but 20 years ago, for mobile phones. And I'm not talking about smartphones, Android, iOS. They did not exist. iPod didn't exist. This was before that. Think about your grandparents' Nokia. They probably still have one. I'm pretty sure if you ask them, they still have one of these Nokias. And if you power it up, it still runs and works. And you can throw it around the house and you can throw it everywhere and it will still run. Because that was how they were made. However, technology-wise, they were pretty crappy. They barely ran software. But they could run games. So while I dig through these games, and I haven't played them for almost 20 years, this is gonna be the first time I'm gonna boot them up and play them. I hope they actually run. Needed an emulator for it. Gonna play through them, talk you a little bit through why they were created, why they were doing certain things, and why it looked like that. Because mobile games were just very different from the games you know now. I think it's gonna be an interesting, fun video. So let's dive into these games. Alright, I found an emulator called K-Emulator, modded, not sure what's modded. It's supposed to be pretty good. I tested it on one game already. I know it runs that game, so can't wait to see every other game. I'm not sure if this is drag and drop, so we're just gonna load the game. I tried Rocket Boy. Let's see. Let's start with my first ever commercial game, and this is what started Orangepixel pretty much. Game files directory, only one version. Back in those days I had various versions because every feature phone was different and they required different builds. It was a crappy system. 150 kilobytes. It sounds like nothing, but this was actually a big file, pretty sure, because I wasn't very good or wasn't very knowledgeable. Oh, look at that old logo. Sorry, this is going to be a nostalgia trip for me. I wasn't very knowledgeable in how to create mobile games. So these levels I created in this game, this is like one big image file. And I just collision check. Oh, sorry. What was I supposed to? Oh, I was supposed to smash him. Okay, stop smashing. Oh, the keys are a bit finicky, but it's an emulator, so okay. The goal of this was pretty simple. Get your way to the top, don't get hit, and smash these enemies. Collision detection was just done based on pixels. There was no tile map in this. It's just an image I drew. And then I remember I just did a tile map based on graphics. I also made very difficult games, very punishing games, as you can see. I'm not sure I'm gonna get very far playing this game. Let's see if I can at least get to level 2. The punishing part of these games wasn't that bad because memory size was so limited. I think there are only maybe 5 levels, maybe less. Probably not many more. And okay, so level 2, we made it. It's a very fun game. You also notice there is no sound. Another limitation of mobile games, because some of my games did have sound, but you could only do like maybe just music or maybe just sound effects, but probably not both, because you could only play one sound at a time. Smash Dizzy, first Orangepixel game ever. Weird logo with just like that square thing. Smash Melee, quick follow up. Use the same character but in a single arena type setup. Let's see what we have here. Black Metal. I hope I have a version here. Yeah, The emulator does MIDEP 2, which is pretty much the generic version, which should run on every feature phone, but back in those days it would not, because every manufacturer changed things here and there or created their own drivers for sound, and it was just very messy. I should go with the Nokia 60 version, which was for a, at that time, more modern Nokia, which had a bigger screen. This is already a newer logo, and with bigger screen I mean 128 pixels wide. That's pretty common and standard for most devices. Eventually that became 160, I think. But the Nokia 60 version had 160 pixels high, I think. Where all the previous phones were 128 by 128. A weird square. And that was all the resolution you have. So you can now also understand why I created pixel art games and why I got into that and still use it. This is pretty much the only way you could do. You couldn't really do much 3D or high resolution because the screen was just 128 pixels by 128 pixels. So this was an old school shooter. I think I can only pick one level right now. Horizontal shooter. I really like those type of games, but I don't think right now in the modern day these games are popular. You now have all these bullet hell shooters, a lot of them in Asia, I think. I don't like those, and I don't have the twitch reflexes for that. I like these things more where you can actually learn patterns from your enemies. Where will they show up? Where will the bonuses be located? And how to best navigate it. And while learning those waves and those incoming things, you get better at the game, you get further into the game, which I think is just a much cleaner design for shooter games. A lot of these graphics were, I reused a lot of that game after game back in those days. The coins in this one are pretty much the same coins as the first couple of games, Smash Dizzy, Smash Melee. Pretty sure I had cool music in this one. Not sure where that music is or why it's not playing. I have music turned on, so that's not the problem. It had cool music, I'm pretty sure. I might also be mistaken. Again, pretty cool, fun little shooter game. Still early days for Orangepixel games. Let's see what we have that's a little bit older. Black Parodius was pretty much black metal, but reskinned and made to look, let me just quickly start it up, made to look like a cute version of a shooter. But it was pretty much the same game, re-released. As you can see, everything is there that was in the original game. Just a quick way for me to release another game. And I'm not sure if I even changed the levels or if I just reused the same layouts. But as you can see, it's just exactly the same game code running, but with different graphics. Now I think a lot of that stuff still applies to today's current state of game development. If you can reuse code, if you can reuse a whole game and reskin it and re-release it, you should. It's a code flip. Let's call it a code flip. A couple of other games. Johnny Rumble, game files. We have, well, MIDEP 2. Let's go with that. As you can see, 2005, but yeah, directory made then. So 2005, 1 year into creating games for mobile. My games slowly got better, still the same interface as the other one. But let me show you this. This was actually the control pad underneath your screen. As you can see there's a left soft key, there's a right soft key, which were two buttons that were usually used for the interface, like approve or cancel or previous, next, things like that. Then you had key numbers, and not many people had a gamepad thingy. So you were playing with buttons that were very sluggish, and some devices you could only press one button at a time. That's a whole different problem. Let's see. Let's not see what's going on. Let me see. Close this one because it all went to crap when I opened that one. Help, keys and normal. Keys simple, keys normal. Not sure what that means. Graphics high and low, or not. I don't know. This probably means we're leaving stuff, not rendering everything. I think there's something going wrong pressing the up key. Let's reload it. I think the high resolution, low resolution graphic thing or setting is probably because on most of these devices ran at maximum of 30 frames per second. Most of them did not even reach that. 21 frames, I think I kept all my games at 21 frames per second, which was already hard to do on some devices. Let's see if we... No, I can't move around with the arrow keys. Can I move? Let's... All right. I think this is the... Pretty sure this is the emulator going crazy. Continue. I can move around with the buttons. Can I jump? This is not gonna be... I can't play a lot. For the people who are about my age, 30 plus, 40 plus, let's call it that, you might actually recognize this as a Turrican-like game. It's just pretty much a action platformer. I really love games like this, and I crammed a lot into this to make it work on mobile phones. Yeah, this is not going to be playable. I can't really move in all directions, can't quickly shoot. Maybe I can shoot with this button. No, buttons are not acting. Failure in the emulator. Let's close Johnny Rumble. Let me show you this. That game file, 62 kilobytes was the whole game. All the graphics. I think a jar file can still... Yeah. All the graphics, all the images, all the data compressed and packed into one file. We're talking about 62 kilobytes for a full screen shooter action game. So I can see there are 4 tile maps here. So pretty sure we have 4 levels. There's a lot of graphics here. These are all PNG files, but I remember to compress it even more. I used one palette for all the PNG files in the game, but I then stripped that palette from the PNG file itself. So you grabbed all the data, because a file is just data, grab it, and the first part I think was the palette. First 256 bytes, probably 256 colors. Strip it from each file, because each file was using the same palette. So that could strip 256 bytes from, I don't know, like 10 files, 20 files. It's a lot of extra bytes. We saved the palette. Here you can see the palette. Oh, it's 780 bytes. Yeah, times 3 probably. That's the palette, and in code we would load in the palette and then combine it with these image files, and then we have a full working PNG again. So this actually saved data. You don't need to do things and tricks like this anymore. But it was a lot of fun making this possible, and that allowed me for extra levels, extra graphics in my game files, while still keeping it under 64 kilobytes. I think that was the maximum on many of the older phones. Eventually that became more and more as we moved towards the smartphones like we have them now. Let me see. Dynamo Kit platformer. I had 3 or 4 Dynamo kits. Couldn't really recover all of them. But these platform games were doing pretty well. This works. Nice emulator. These platform games were doing very well. So I kept making new ones. Let's see if it actually works. Dreamland, Happy Play. I even started adding little intro animations. As you can see, my game slowly became more and more and bigger until I grew out of mobile and just the space and room I had available. Okay, so yeah, I remember this one. It's weird how sometimes these memories of levels come back to you, and I've played these so many times when I was designing them that I have a fairly good memory of them. I can't remember everything, obviously. And a funny thing I remember now from this is the background. It looks very stylish, having these blue sketchbook lines and sketchy backgrounds and not a lot going on. This was actually required to make it move this smoothly. Meaning that every white area is simply nothing being drawn. So I skipped a lot of processing cycles, or whatever we're going to call it. I didn't have to use them. I only had to draw the stuff you see. So the less on screen, the faster the game goes. So by keeping the background, could I pass through this? No. By keeping the background white, it looks very stylish. but it was actually a technical limitation of what I could do for these games at that period of time. So it's actually fun. It's still a fun game. Skirmish mode, instructions, cool instruction page, invincible. You can actually turn into a super dynamo kit. The escape button closes it. 50 kilobytes for this game. Pretty cool. Now this was, we're gonna move to something else. I just told you the keypads were, I mean, yeah, you could play the games with it, but it wasn't very smooth. So at some point in time, every game developer figured out that perhaps we could start making games with one button. So this was a certain thing happening where people tried to see what you could do with one button games. Use sounds, yes, if you can. Okay, we actually have a game with sound. Mute it over there. Yeah, still sound playing for you guys, just not for me. Sound. It was a bit crappy, I know. Actually, I had some very cool sounds, but it was all MIDI files, so it's synthesizer-like stuff. You could not do anything else. Again, we're talking about 49 kilobytes for the whole game. A simple sample would probably take up more bytes, but a MIDI file does not, because it just contains the notes and the instrument number, and then the device it's played on has an instrument already. And that means exactly what you think it means if you think about that. Not every device had the same type of sound for the exact same instrument. So your music could sound a little bit different depending on which device the player was using. And that player would actually might actually have a problem not hearing any sound at all, because phones at that time were, for some weird reason, crap at creating music and audio. It's a phone. I know, it's still amazingly weird. Okay, I can play with the keypad, just not with my keyboard. Oh yeah, there was a puzzle game with I think just a 5 to go up, and then you use these things, and then, oh, there was a time. Okay, I have to do this faster, but I understand now. So quickly, let's get these one, let's get these two, let's get that one done, level done. Let's move on to the next one. That's still a fun game. It's kind of sad that these games like this don't really work anymore in today's market. At least not the market that I'm in with my games, because it's just it's fun, but it's also a little bit simplistic looking, and people will not be paying a lot of money for a game like this. Oh wait, lasers. Yeah, lasers, avoid them. Maybe I should have these games available on my website so that you could play them as well. Let me know what you think about that in the reactions below. I might be able to just zip them all up and upload them. I'll have to clean them up first, and then put them on the website so you can download them alongside one of these emulators. Yokio is another platformer. I'm missing a couple of games from the later stage of Orangepixel. Those were the better games, and I'm missing those. That's kind of sad to see, but so be it. Select the realm to start your quest. Collect all the coins and find the exit. You can move left, right, 4, 6 keys. Press 2 to jump, but don't jump on the creatures. You are not Mario. Here we go. Shoot creatures with the 5 key. Okay. Even tutorials added. Let's not forget that every line of text in the game, every dialogue takes up bytes. And that means you just have less room available for your code or your graphics. So making it all work was a very interesting time, very interesting to just see how much you could cram into it. The game was 46 kilobytes. That's nothing. I think if you just now create a little image, you're probably already using more bytes than the whole game was using. Watch out for lasers and guns. I know, I'm just trying to time. Oh, you shoot twice. Okay, I can avoid that. No parallax layers in the background because that's just not possible. Rumble X. All right, another part of Orangepixel history. Sorry, this video is mostly nostalgia for me and fun for me, and not so much for you. I don't know. Let me know if you like it or not. I'm not going to do another video like this because we're going through all the games I have now. RumbleX was a network for high scores that I owned and created. You could upload your high scores there and it could download high scores from there. Other developers used it, and it was pretty much what you have now with achievements and high scores in pretty much every system and everywhere. But it wasn't on mobile, and I created one service like that for at least my own games, and that was RumbleX. Talking about Rumble, let's go to Johnny Rumble 2. I just showed you part 1. Part 2 is a later game, 2006, so that's not even that late. 77 kilobytes, which meant it couldn't run on the older versions. Oh, I actually have a smaller version that's 62 kilobytes for the older Nokias. Not sure what I stripped, probably music, I'm guessing. So, use sounds, yes. Alright, again, if you know Turrican from back in the old days, this is Turrican, but my version of it. Let's see what we can do in this game. Again, very empty background, because that means we didn't have to render every pixel on the screen. The less pixels you have to render, the better. Can I get away from these guys? Yes, I can, because there's a bonus block over here. I even have an extra weapon. The status bar at the bottom, that's a very big area, pretty much because that meant I did not have to render the tile map there, the background, and again skipping a lot of cycles and rendering cycles to make sure the game could run in like 21 frames per second, something like that. This was already a much better game than the first one. Just the animation is, the legs are moving, but nothing else is moving on this character. Of course, that's also a technical limitation, but I'm also pretty sure that's also a limitation for my animation skills at that time, or just a lack of interest in animating it. Let's go upstairs, let's go somewhere to the right. I just want to see if I can make it to second level without dying. I have 1 life left. Let's go, let's try and do it. It would probably go a lot better if I didn't get hurt as much or damaged as much. Okay, yeah, upload score to RumbleX. No, because we can't. Oh, this is a cooperation with Plastic Cow Games. He did the code, I did the graphics. The cars look kind of crappy. I could have done much better on these cars, I'm pretty sure. But fun game, actually a racing game, cooperation with somebody else. I didn't do many of them, but I did do some of those back in the day. And I had a pretty good distribution network for my game, so I also published other people's games alongside my own. Distribution back in those days was a wild scene. Right now you just upload to the Apple App Store or to Google Play or to Steam, and your game is ready to go and reach everybody that has the device for it. Back in those days, I think there were thousands of game websites. Every phone company where you actually have your phone subscription, Vodafone, I don't know, Orange, all these companies had their own website where they had their own games, and not every game got on there, so you actually needed contacts and partners to get your game on as many of these sites as possible. I'm not gonna win this lap anyway, so let's just quit. So it was having a good distribution network at that time was a key thing. Okay, so there's a lot more games there. I'm just not gonna go through all of them. I can't. That's gonna be such a long video. Just check what I've already recorded. I actually had to cut in that video already because it would have been way too long. Some cool things to talk about here. We didn't have editors, so all these games were written in a text file. Pretty much like Notepad, but maybe probably a special version of Notepad that had different tabs, so you could have multiple files open, maybe a tree, file tree on the left, and You could edit multiple files, but it was just written in text, no syntax checking, nothing, no checking at all, no compile checking, just compile it, run it, see if it works. If it doesn't, figure out why it doesn't. Also, in some of these games, you'll notice that enemies or certain items in the game are full square and have no transparent pixels at all. This was just faster to render. If an image had alpha transparency, the processor, the rendering system would actually have to go through every pixel, see if it was transparent, at which amount transparency, all that stuff. If it had no transparency at all, it would just quickly dump that image onto the screen, which was a lot faster, saving you frames per second in rendering. So a lot of little tricks and techniques had to go into that. I think that's also the reason there were much less game developers, or at least on mobile, but also on PC and other systems. Tools have gotten so much better since that it's a lot easier now for people to create games without actually knowing what goes on under the hood. And I see a lot of game developers grab a lot of assets and stuff, combine it with some scripts and pre-made things built by other game developers that probably do know what's going on. They all match it, mix it, and it runs on their PC. Then they release it and they get a lot of people telling them, I got like the most powerful graphic card and PC, but your game isn't running, help me fix it. And then the developer doesn't know how to fix it because they've been using all these pre-made tools and have no idea what goes on under the hood. And a lot of things, tricks, techniques are still being used, but by the game engine developer and not so much by the game developer anymore, which is a sad thing to see, because that's actually where game development is fun, and that's the stuff I still like to do. All right, been talking way too much for this video. I will be zipping this up. I actually just decided that I'm gonna zip this all up, make it available on my website, so check out Orangepixel or come hang out on Discord and ask me about it. I'll have a post up there sometimes before this video goes live. It will have the zip of all these games, at least the Nokia version that runs in the emulator. You'll have to download the emulator, but I'll link to it, and you can actually check out some of these ancient games. And I had a blast just going through it. So thanks for watching. If you're still watching the video, thanks for watching. I hope you actually enjoyed watching these old games. So these are the games that started Orangepixel, that turned me into the professional full-time game developer I am now, 20 years later, or almost 20 years later. It has been a fun ride for me. I hope you enjoyed it. See you next week. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment below, hop on the Discord, come say hi, and check out these games. Bye.